Hello everybody, today I'm going to talk about what sacred geometry actually is. And the first thing I'd like to say about it is that you don't need to be very good at mathematics to not only understand it, but also to be able to use it to effect. The first thing that sacred geometry represents is the application of geometric shapes and patterns with sacred intent. And that is what I'd call a way of defining it so that you actually understand what you're doing when you're using it. And this is different from what is commonly known as mundane geometry, where you're only using geometry to make things like a table or a chair or a rug or something where you have a geometric shape, but you're not using it specifically for sacred applications. It's just for a tool for sitting on or having dinner at. So if we take a table, for example, and you use that for a temple, in a temple as an altar, then you're deliberately creating that altar to a specific shape and dimensionally, maybe, in terms of the ratios and proportions, and you're obviously going to put specific things on it, so therefore it's a sacred geometry application. Purists would say that all geometry is sacred because all of geometry originates from source. Source being a point dividing into two, so you have duality, then trinity, squares, everything like that. And that is, to some extent, is true. All geometry is sacred because everything is manifest out of geometry, everything crystallizes on it. So, and because it originates from source, therefore it is sacred. But from the point of view of understanding how you use geometry, sacred geometry is the application of geometric shapes deliberately for some kind of sacred application. Apart from that, you can use geometry not only as a symbol, where it's two-dimensional, but also as a tool to construct three-dimensional things like temples and designs. So those are the sort of sacred geometry applications where you're doing something like a mandala, which is two-dimensional, and you're meditating on it. Every single geometric shape or pattern represents a specific feature or attribute of reality, and then when you use the geometry because of what it represents or because of what it actually structures, then you're going to invoke the power of that shape. So for example, let's talk about triangles. They would be to do with the I am, to do with what it is to be, circles of time, and squares are space. I talk about each shape in more detail in some of my bites so that you can see how you could use them. Even though we might use them two-dimensionally or three-dimensionally, they actually represent dimensions beyond that, and also the fact that you have as above, so to below. So what is in spirit is also in matter. You can add colour to geometry just as you would an artist, like for example one of my paintings behind me, and the colour adds a more sort of emotional element. Every colour has a symbolic meaning, and it adds another layer of vibration and symbolism to your sacred geometry. The one behind me, for example, is all about boxing up love. So love, we tend to say there's love of nature, love of this, love of that, whereas in fact behind all types of love and the way that we categorise it is just universal love. Geometry is also carried by sound. So when you're invoking the power of a geometric shape, you will use a sound and that resonates with it. Now, all of since geometry is carried within sound, the combination of sound and geometry when you're using sacred applications, sacred geometry applications, is really quite potent. As for example, when you're in a temple and you're chanting, or when you're using a mandala and you're using a Sanskrit mantra. The other thing I want to say about sacred geometry at this point, and to conclude, is that geometry and geometric shapes are the only universal language across the globe, because a square is a square wherever you go, a circle, etc. Whereas, as I've already mentioned, colour is not a universal symbolic system. Thank you very much for listening. I hope that little bite about what sacred geometry is all about is of use to you, and you've learned a bit from it. Bye for now.